Hey, welcome back to the show. We're keeping it real goes right. Welcome back to Real Take Sports Talk. That was where you were supposed to jump in, Andrew, but it's okay. We got a great show planned for you today. We're going to be talking about the NBA Finals. One team has already clinched its way into the NBA Finals with one more team remaining. That could happen just at the end of this week. Also going to be talking about Chris Paul finally making the NBA Finals as the Phoenix Suns, who I just forgot to mention there, clinched their spot and what that means for his legacy. Patrick Beverly pushing Chris Paul. The Nets inching their way. My Washington Nationals inching their way back up into the NL East picture. Also, we're going to talk about the NCAA's landmark ruling on college football and college athletes, rather, getting paid and much, much more here on this amazing July 1st, Thursday, July 1st edition, the 45th edition of Real Take Sports Talk. 45 episodes, Andrew. That's wild, isn't it, considering like where we started?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, Andrew. So, I guess with that enthusiasm you just demonstrated there, we're going to get started here on this wonderful day. On this wonderful day. What could be so wonderful about this day? We'll get to that in a second, but let's talk about what happened last night. Actually, first I want to get your opinion on this. Pandemic pizza to Shanghai Shark, says T Higgins in the chat. What do you think about that?
You know what? I'm not going to put last night entirely on Chris Paul. On
Paul
Paul
George.
George.
Yeah, there you go.
He did. He did his best. I will say he did sell me when he missed those two free throws at the end of game two. I think that was right there the difference in the series. Instead of them being down 3-2, they would have been up 3-2. But
Is what it is.
I wouldn't necessarily send him to the Shanghai Sharks. I mean, listen, we got to send Ben Simmons.
Well, yeah,
There before.
Ben Simmons might not even be good enough to make the Shanghai. The Sharks still shoot. Remember that. The Sharks still need to shoot. Remember, wasn't Jim Fredette on the Shanghai Sharks? No, that's a
Yes.
shooting team. That's a shooting team.
And one thing you also have to remember, dude, is, and this is to anyone listening out there, if you ever feel like you ever feel down, you ever feel bad, you ever feel worthless, just remember Ben Simmons wears a shooting sleeve.
Ain't that the truth? All right, Andrew, let's get serious. Let's get real, as they say. Last night, they did it. The Phoenix Suns won Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals, clinching the Western Conference title, and along with it, a spot in the NBA Finals for the first time since the year of our Lord, 1993. Andrew, what does this win mean for the Phoenix Suns franchise and for Suns fans who have not had this happen for a very long time?
I mean, what the win means, obviously the win means that, upper management's doing a good job. James Jones, Monty Williams, they're all doing their job. And it just goes to show that you draft, you build organically. Think about most of those dudes on the roster. They didn't go out and they didn't really make the home run. Like, you could look at Chris Paul as kind of like the home run acquisition that a lot of teams like to make. But look at the foundation they built. They drafted Devin Booker. They drafted DeAndre Ayton. They drafted Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, and then they went out and they just got tough, hard-nosed guys who have like been in this situation before. They went out, they got campaign with playoff experience. They bought in, obviously, Chris Paul, who has, how many playoff games did he have? Like, they had a list. Like, he was like top five or something like that, most playoff games.
Yeah.
Of modern players without making a finals appearance. So
Mm-hmm.
there was that. And they guys like Crowder and stuff like that who have been there. So they built it organically. And it just goes to show that, you build your team organically. You do it right. You draft well. You bring in the right coach, fill in with the right players and everything like that. And you can make things happen. And then, you bring in a leader like Chris Paul. We saw what Chris Paul did last year. And you know what? They added Chris Paul to what they had with the young core with Devin Booker, Ayton, and those boys, and look, they're in the finals.
Yeah. I think you said it like almost perfectly there. Like the for Phoenix Suns, if you're a Suns fan right now, I think you're more excited than you were even during the height of the Steve Nash era when Steve Nash made all those Western Conference Finals back in the day. I think you are elated at not just where this team has gone, but the outlook for the future. Because remember, this is fairly a young team. sans Chris Paul, this is a young team that is only going to get better as, especially as Devin Booker, who is the odds-on favorite, to, I think at this point to lead this team to a finals victory and to be one of the best players in Suns history. We'll get to that in a minute, but I think for the Phoenix Suns franchise, first time since 1993. And even then, 1993, that was the Jordan era, the Hakeem era of basketball. Like it was a very slim chance that Charles Barkley was going to deliver a ring for them. So, considering the positioning they're in now compared to then, you were even more excited than you were then because this is a team that is honestly, if you look at the landscape, the best team left standing because like the Hawks are also a young team, but do they have the consistent firepower to stay along with them? No, they don't. They definitely don't have the defense to do it. Can the Bucks stop this team when they're on their game? No, they can't. If we're being honest, because the Bucks, man, they've had trouble. They've gone to Game 7s, and this is a team in the Phoenix Suns that has proven they're tested against great defense in this in this Western Conference playoff. So I think if you're a Suns fan, the outlook is optimistic more so than ever, considering how young this team is, considering how talented this team is, and just the budding superstar that Devin Booker was and has become. If you're a Suns fan, be happy, be elated. Y'all deserve it. Big shout out to the Valley. Also, we should point out, man, DeAndre Ayton, he got a lot of flack for being picked before Luka. He got a lot of flack for being picked before people like Trae Young. He proved in, I think, these playoffs so far what he means to this team and the role that he plays because he is that franchise level center that is going to make those plays, going to get those blocks, going to get 20 rebounds a game in these Western Conference Finals to make the difference for your team. Because if we're being honest, this team is not in the position it's in without someone like DeAndre Ayton producing to the level that he was producing at, especially in the Western Conference Finals. So he deserves a lot of credit. We know he got that last second alley-oop, the valley-oop as they're calling it now. So big ups to him and big ups to this team as a whole for what they've done.
So I like you did make a lot of good points. One thing I'm just going to tell you is number one, if we do, whoever comes out of the East, I think Atlanta, obviously, with the youth factor in it, Atlanta, I think, would struggle a little bit more against Phoenix in the finals. Now, Milwaukee would be an interesting one to me just because when I think about Milwaukee, they have gone to Game 7s, but look at who they took to Game 7. They did sweep the Heat in the first round. And one thing that Milwaukee offers that this team, that the Suns have not seen, is you highlighted it right before. Nobody has been more important as much as Devin Booker and Chris Paul have been just the driving force behind it. No one's been more of an unsung hero than DeAndre Ayton. And that he offers a different kind of, like Giannis offers a different kind of challenge for him. That's the only thing I'm going to say. I don't know if his impact can be as great just because the game is more, because it's shifted to more of a perimeter game. A lot of teams don't play as much of the, throwback slasher, I'm going to get to the basket. Like a big man is going to, get to the basket. He's going to catch the ball 5 to 10 feet away from the basket, put his head down, either back a guy down or just take it to the hole the way Giannis does. And so that's why I feel like Giannis, like that's an interesting matchup for them because that team is built almost to take on a team like Phoenix, just given how well they play defense with their length and everything like that. And they have a player, Giannis, realistically during the regular season, he can average 35 and 12. Like that's a realistic thing for if he goes out every night and says, I'm getting 30 to 40, he can do it because you can't stop him. Like the only one that can stop Giannis is Giannis. So that's the only reason why I think Milwaukee would give them more of a challenge. And Milwaukee's a better team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt.
That's number one. The other thing I was going to say was DeAndre Ayton, dude. The reason why I feel like I hate the fact that a lot of people point like they've been like bringing up how DeAndre Ayton, he was a surprise. the dude as a rookie averaged 16 and 11. Like
Yeah.
he averaged 18 and 12 a second year. He
Mm-hmm.
flew under the radar because the team was not really doing that well. And because once again, what does what do people fall in love with? They fall in love with the flash, the flashy passes, the step backs and everything like that. This is not the game is not what it was 20, 25 years ago. And it's not as predicated around big men where a guy like DeAndre Ayton, he can have as big of an impact as he's having and completely fly under the radar and average almost 20 and 12 and completely fly under the radar, A, because his team isn't doing that well, and B, because he just doesn't get as much hype as a guy like Luka and as you're seeing Trae Young.
And I think like you hit on it earlier. The reasoning that he doesn't get that hype, or the reasoning he got a lot of criticism early on, was I think because a lot of it had to do with the position he played, because he was a center. He wasn't this this elite score offensive juggernaut like Trae Young developed into. He wasn't this what some people thought to be an almost finished product in Luka Doncic, who had been playing against big like adults like for the past 5 years before he went into the NBA draft. Like he didn't have that coming out, and and we fall in love with point guards. We fall in love with the flashiness, the scoring. Like Luka Doncic came out and he had like I think like what did he do? He had like the most 40-point games that a rookie has ever had in the league in his first year. So like it's easy to get lost in the flash. It's easy to get lost in how good these guys are, because Trae Young and Luka Doncic are two of, I think they're going to be like the two of the most defining figures of this era of basketball. And that's not to say DeAndre Ayton isn't, but I think that's kind of the reason why you saw DeAndre Ayton before these playoffs kind of slip under the radar, because even when you were talking about the Suns, Andrew, you weren't talking about DeAndre Ayton. You were talking about guys like Chris Paul. You were talking about guys like Devin Booker, obviously. So he was someone who slipped under the radar. But I think the Valley Oop, especially, just the image, he needed that. He needed that image. He needed that moment to, I don't even want to say salvage, but like I think in the amongst reputations as a number one pick, be mentioned in that category of player. So that's what I think about that.
Absolutely, dude. I mean, you just look back, dude. Number one player coming out of high school, number one overall pick. The talent was there, dude. It's just, oftentimes, you got guys who are good enough, and it's either A, because they're just not, the media doesn't push them enough, and a lot of people don't give them as much hype as they should. And what I'm happy about DeAndre Ayton, I'm happy seeing this for DeAndre Ayton because I know this is going to help springboard him, and it's going to help, there's going to be a lot more people who are going to start paying more attention to DeAndre Ayton and the kind of talent that he is. And DeAndre Ayton, dude, guys like him and Giannis, if DeAndre Ayton continues to ball out and Giannis could get his team to the finals, we might actually begin to see, maybe the big man, like of the big man position, so to say, as much as it's lost importance, it could begin to gain importance again in the NBA, as we see a lot of times that stuff shifts.
Yeah, because it is cyclical. We went through an era in the '90s, especially, where centers were exceedingly dominant. Or like '90s into or '80s into the '90s. So and then it switched over to guards, switched over to small forwards for a while. So like you're right. Like sometimes those things change. Let's kind of shift gears, stick with this, but shift gears a little bit and talk about the Suns. Now, I said earlier that I think they are the best team left in these playoffs. And as far as an outlook for them in the finals, because we don't know who's going to win in the West yet, or sorry, the East yet. That's still to be decided. But one thing I can tell from both of the teams that are left, the Hawks and the Bucks, you and I hit it earlier, the Hawks probably are an easier out for the Suns, just given how, again, young that team is. And Trae Young, at the end of the day, he can't do it himself. And
They're
that's
too reliant on him.
they're too
That's
reliant
their
on
issue.
him. Yeah, it's a very similar dynamic with the Dallas Mavericks and Luka Doncic, but with the Bucks, you're right. I think they do offer a different perspective. They offer a different challenge to this team. The only thing I will say though is that's if Giannis is healthy and if Giannis is at 100%. Because we saw like earlier this week, Giannis, man, he twisted that ankle or hyperextended it, so that might play into it. But just from where we are right now, who gives the Suns the best matchup right now? And even at like, can they beat the Suns? Can any team that is left, can the Hawks or the Bucks beat the Suns in a 7-game series for the championship?
I think either of them. Honestly, we're at the point right now, dude. Nothing is. Every team is one turned ankle away from
Mm.
the Suns, dude. Think about it, dude. The Suns are Chris Paul is not exactly he's not young. He's up there in age and he plays hard, and he is coming off of an injury. Remember, but they are one Devin Booker collision away from they could potentially lose in the finals depending on who they play. So there's that. I think Milwaukee it's the worst matchup for them, just because, as I mentioned before, Giannis he's a different kind of challenge. You can't really game plan for him, dude. Like, I know everyone says build the wall, do this, and it's like you can force Giannis to be a facilitator, but he's even shown. Listen, I've been watching this series, dude. I've been seeing Giannis. He's been getting double and triple teamed down low, and he's still spinning off of guys. You really can't, and especially with those other guys, dude. You get Drew Holiday getting it going. You get Chris Middleton, the fourth quarter he had the other day. If he could put together a couple quarters like that consecutively, dude, now all of a sudden you can't double Giannis, and you got to worry about those other guys. And it's just a player who's already as dominant as Giannis. It just makes it more difficult. That's why I think you get into a series like that. Like, I look at who Phoenix has had to play along the way. So they had to play Anthony Davis, who we know he's up and down. As talented as he is, he's up and down. He's not Giannis. Then in the second round, Denver, they went up against Jokic, which once again, it's as well as DeAndre Ayton played against Jokic, that team revolves around Jokic. It's just Giannis offers such a different, because Jokic won the MVP. He's a facilitator. Jokic is great. He's not the athlete that Giannis is. Anthony Davis, we don't know what's good. Anthony Davis some days decides I'm going to attack the basket like Giannis and I'm going to score. Other days, Anthony Davis wants to be a 3-point shooter. You know what I'm saying? And then they got to the Western Conference Finals, and if it's a Zubox, you know what I'm saying? If it's a Zubox, he's a solid center. Boogie Cousins is good, but Giannis just offers them a different challenge, and he's going to play 100% every play. He's not going to take play. Look, he got hurt the other day, dude. It just goes to show you, like, after a while, just playing just going all out, it's eventually going to come back to get you. So I hope Giannis is okay, but I give the edge if the series is Hawks versus Phoenix, I give that series to the Suns in 5. I think in a 7-game series, though, with a healthy Giannis, I think that series could go 7. With, I think, depending on who has home court, I think Milwaukee could take that series.
Look, if Milwaukee's able to do it, like, they will probably be known as like Giannis will. I think his overall legacy, his overall status as a player is going to go up emphatically, because Giannis really doesn't have, when you think about it, that number 2 superstar to the level that a lot of the other teams have. So I think that would elevate him greatly in the minds of a lot of players and fans as well. But
additionally, just real quick, I started to cut you off. Additionally, one point that I wanted to make real quick before I let you was that another thing. This is a really big thing, by the way, and it shows you that. Look at the 3 teams now. Look at the 3 teams that are remaining. Right, the 3 teams that are remaining are Phoenix, Atlanta, Milwaukee. All 3 of those teams organically built. Most of those dudes are homegrown. Most of those dudes were drafted there. And with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 trades to bring in a player who's not like the face. Think about it, like Chris Paul,
100% true.
Devin Booker's the face of that franchise. Clint Capella in Atlanta, Capella, Bogdanovich, they're good. Trae Young is the face of that franchise. Look at Milwaukee. You got Chris Middleton. You have Giannis. Giannis is the face of that franchise. They drafted Middleton. They did bring in guys like Drew Holiday. They bought in Lopez, but those guys are homegrown.
They're not these major signings like Anthony Davis getting traded to LA or Kawhi going to LA. Like these are for the most part more humble signings than those kinds of. Yeah, I get that.
And what it goes to show you was that if you want to have sustained long-term success, what Milwaukee has had the last couple of years with being a playoff team the last 5 seasons, and obviously Phoenix, they're going to be a fix in this playoffs for a long time. A lot of it's going to hinge on Devin Booker and Ayton and those guys, like the face of the franchise. Same with Atlanta, dude. They're going to be a fix for a long time. So it just goes to show you that, a lot the fast money approach that a lot of these teams like to take, what the Lakers did, which was that they got a championship out of it. But look, next year, bounce in the first round, and look at how uncertain their future is. Think about it. They mortgaged their entire future. Now you got people sitting up there. We got to trade Kyle Kuzma. I've seen people like, oh, let's bring in Damian Lillard. I'm like, if you think after all the shit that y'all talk about, that people talk about Kyle Kuzma, if you think for 1 second Portland's going to say, yeah, we'll just give you the guy who's been the face of our franchise the last 10 years for a player that y'all think should be playing in China, that's dumb. You know what I'm saying?
See, this is why we need Johnny G. But we might be in. I think I like what you said. We might be in a position where more homegrown, more organically built teams are going to be successful. Like there, you just said it. The last three teams remaining now, all homegrown, except for maybe Chris Paul. You can say we'll talk about him in a second, but even Chris Paul, he's not like he's not the an addition. With all respect to Chris Paul, he's not a player right now in his career like Anthony Davis, who's in his prime. He's not one of a huge name who is changing teams, a franchise changing player. Although it kind of became that. But your point taken. I think that we could see this, maybe be a blueprint, and maybe you'll see players like Damian Lillard be more patient. You'll see other players possibly in the future be more patient, knowing that, like, you can have success. You can have, like, a good level of success staying where you are. You can have a good level of success depending on the ownership group, depending on the coaching, because that plays a huge part in it. Like what Phoenix built with James Jones, what Monty Williams built in Phoenix was special. This was not like, them just drafting like, like first round pick after first round pick after first round pick. As a Cavs fan, I know what that feels like. It doesn't always lead to success. You have to have a plan. You have to have a vision for your team, and big props to James Jones for that. Bigger props to Monty Williams who executed it all in a game plan for these players, and Devin Booker as well. That being said, Andrew, I want to shift gears one more time here and talk about Devin Booker. Devin Booker now is in a position where he has brought this team, the Phoenix Suns, to an NBA final, something that a lot of people didn't expect. But I think one of the questions I have now is Devin Booker the best Suns player ever? Or will he go down as the best Suns player ever now that he's done something that even Steve Nash wasn't able to do, and that's get his team to a finals? And if he's able to win, where does that put him as far as Suns players? Because that's a big deal.
So as it stands right now, I would rank him. I'd rank him up there. I mean, the only other person I would say, and that's just based off of, the entire longevity. Obviously, this is only year 5 or 6 for Devin Booker. The only other player that I would really give like the edge to would be Barkley, obviously, because he's a Hall of Famer and everything, but he didn't win. If Devin Booker were to be the one to deliver that first championship to Phoenix, he goes down as, yes, the greatest Suns player ever, dude. There's people that are sitting up here saying he's basically a carbon copy of Kobe, like he's the next one. It went from Jordan to Kobe, and then Devin Booker's first year in the league, I think, was Kobe's last year in the league. So maybe he was like, and he did grow up idolizing Kobe. He did work out with Kobe. He took a lot of Kobe's moves. You can see he's got a lot of Kobe in him. We could be seeing potentially this is the next iteration of that kind of player. Just that tenacious, drive to win, and a dude who, just a pure scorer. And he took a part of the game that everyone was saying was obsolete, which was the mid-range game. And he essentially, could lead his team to a championship with it. So.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Devin Booker, I think, in my opinion, even if he doesn't win, he's in that conversation automatically. And I think part of it has to do with the fact that he is so young. That plays a huge part in it for me. The fact that he is so young, he's maybe just entering his prime. Who knows what he can accomplish over time? And the other thing is just the way he dominates games, because I don't think there's a player. Maybe you can point to like, like LeBron or Luca, but outside of those guys, I don't think there's a player who dominates for his team like Devin Booker right now. Like Devin Booker this year, and then go back to last year in the bubble. This dude was on something else. He was on a tear like nobody else. Like he was out to prove something. And I do think part of the Mamba mentality, like growing up a fan of Kobe, having that relationship a little bit with Kobe, that I think did play a part in his ascent into what he has become. But I think Devin Booker, if he wins the championship this year, it's set and done. Like, and I'm not afraid to say that it's set and done. This dude is the best player this franchise has ever had. Not just because he dominates offensively in the way he does, not just because he actually elevates the play of his teammates in various different ways. Not just because of all that, not just because of the leadership, the mentality, but the fact that he was able to do something Steve Nash wasn't able to do. He was able to do something Charles Barkley was not able to do. He was able to bring a championship home to Phoenix. That is a huge deal. And I promise you, if he does, in the eyes of Phoenix fans, as much as they love Steve Nash, as much as they love Charles Barkley, or might not anymore, but there's a bit of a controversy there. But either way, as much as they love those guys, there's going to be no one more beloved. There's going to be no one more, I think, have more honor bestowed upon him than Devin Booker. And you can take that to the bank.
And listen, man, the same goes for Trae Young, dude. The same would go for Trae Young. As much as they've had guys like Dominique Wilkins, they've had the who was it, Maravich or something like that, dude. They've had some studs that have come through. You have to look at if Trae Young is the one to deliver the first championship to a franchise like the Atlanta Hawks. You got to look at him and just say, with how young he is, he's the best player they've ever had. I mean, considering the fact just the load that he carries, and same with Devin Booker. Devin Booker has a little bit easier with guys like Chris Paul, and Ayton could go out and give you 25 and 12 a night. But you look at someone like Trae Young, dude, and if he does it, without a doubt, you have to sit here and say
whole different level.
That's the best Atlanta Hawks player ever, dude.
Oh yeah, by far, and we'll talk about that I guess in a little bit. Let's get to some chat questions because the chat's blowing up a little bit right now. Jimmer was a god on the Sharks. Damn right he was. Every time I shoot a three, no, I don't care where I am, whether I'm on a court or even playing 2K, I scream Jimmer. Get Grado power forward. Okay, that's for the wrestling show, bud. T. Higgins says, Valley Oop. T. Higgins says, if Giannis is out for the series, Hawks got it. They probably do, honestly. Because without Giannis, that team falls apart. Cameron said, just joined. The Phoenix Suns are the clear favorite to defeat either the Hawks or the Bucks. Yeah, I mean, I definitely give them the edge. He also says, Omar, I really like your sports and politics show. Oh, okay. Yeah, dude. You DM me on Twitter. Yeah, like I think you follow me already. At OmarQ_. DM me on Twitter and we can work something out and we can come on and talk about that. He also says Devin may go down as the best scorer of all time. He could surpass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in most points score all time. I mean, he could.
He's a volume scorer. We have seen he had that 70-point game, dude. I mean, not many guys can go out and have a night like that, dude. This is the kind of dude that can go out if he wants to. He could average 30 on a season, dude. He is that kind of scorer.
Oh yeah, and he can do it consistently, and he can do it like without taking away from his teammates. So that's the difference between someone like him, I believe, and someone like James Harden. Like he needs the ball. Devin Booker, it's weird. He can score. He can give you 30, and you won't even notice it. But everyone else will be involved. Like he's very efficient. He's a lot more efficient than people give him credit for. Like a lot of these guys, like James Harden, he needs the ball in his hands like every other play. Like Russell Westbrook, very similar dynamic with him. But big ups to Devin Booker. Let's shift gears one more time on this topic, Andrew. Along with the win last night, we saw Chris Paul, one of the leaders of this team, put in a great clutch performance with 41 points to clinch the NBA Finals for the first time in his 16-year, hopefully Hall of Fame career. He punched his ticket to the Finals. What does this mean for Chris Paul's legacy as a player? Because he was never able. That was a knock on him. Every team he was at, whether it was the Clippers, the Hornets, or the Houston Rockets, the knock on Chris Paul was always the dude can't win the big one. He can't get over the hump into the finals. What does this win mean for him?
So the win is huge. Obviously, he was going to be a Hall of Famer regardless. Chris Paul was going to go down as one of the top 5 guards to ever play in the NBA, and that's that's a known fact. What this does is this just lets him add to the resume. There's a lot of guys who play their entire career and don't win, and Chris Paul, it's very, as much as he gets a lot of hate for the way a lot of things went down in Houston and kind of the way things ended in LA with the Clippers, dude, you have to look at his whole body of work and you just have to ask yourself, first off, when he was in New Orleans, dude, he was carrying that team. Like, a lot of people don't remember his first stint in New Orleans, dude. He had that New Orleans at the time Hornets team. They were like the 2 seed in the West, dude. And they took the Spurs, who I think either went to the Western Conference Finals or the Finals that year. They took them like 6 games. They almost beat the team that, I think, if it was 07, they almost beat the team that won the whole thing that year. So Chris Paul, I don't think this just adds to his legacy. Obviously he's a Hall of Famer, dude. The icing on the cake, every player wants to win that championship. And nobody at this point, I don't think anybody wants it more than Chris Paul, considering the fact that a lot of his, maybe Melo might be the only other one that wants it more. But with regards to guys that have, they've paid their dues, they've given so much to the game and everything like that, been a great ambassador to the game and everything too, dude. We're at the point, especially with his career and the way it's gone, all the scrutiny he's undergone, he goes and he wins that championship. That's the icing on the cake. He was already a Hall of Famer, but this just cements him as probably one of the top two guards to ever play the game.
Really? Okay. I don't know if I go that far. Top 2 guards to ever play the game.
Point guard. I'm not going to say.
Okay, I was about to say,
shooting guard. I'm not going to say.
Nani,
I'm not going to go
like Kobe, Jordan, Nani, but no, I get
point guard.
I get what you're saying. No, Chris Paul. I mean, if we look at the offseason acquisitions from last year, and there were a few to talk about, right? No one meant more. There was no bigger acquisition at the end of the day, like having seen what's transpired over the past year, than Chris Paul. The Suns win the free agency, contest for this past offseason just because of what Chris Paul meant. He scored 41. That shows you how hungry this guy is. The knock on him, and that was a big thing in Houston. The big thing in Houston coming out of that whole situation, a lot of people pointed at Chris Paul as the problem. They pointed at Chris Paul as the reason that team didn't do well, when in reality, if you look at it, Chris Paul was the reason Chris Paul not being there in game 7 of the Western Conference Finals. That was one of the big reasons they didn't make it to the finals that year. So in reality, it was Chris Paul who brought them to the dance. It was Chris Paul who would have probably been that edge for them against the Warriors, who, by the way, had just acquired KD at that point. So let's not talk so this whole talk about Chris Paul, well, he was never really that good, or Chris Paul, he was always a really solid, great player, but he was never able to get over the hump. He was just never, I think, in a place where he was afforded that opportunity. The closest he got was Houston, and he ended up getting injured. And if you look at what happened with the Clippers, that team, there was a lot of coaching changes. There were Blake Griffin and him, they played well for the first few years, but they never got into a groove, and Blake never developed into that player. So there were always a lot of different things going on that I don't think people took into account as far as the whole debate about Chris Paul. But what this does prove, and I think what this does do, is silence a lot of the haters. Because Chris Paul, of anyone in the NBA to have haters, I know LeBron has his haters. I know that, even KD has his haters with the snake emojis and whatnot. But
he has a lot of haters.
Chris Paul is someone, I think, who's gotten a lot of hate unjustifiably for a very long time. And what this does is, hopefully, when he wins, I think they will win. When he wins, it's going to shut those people up, and it's going to, again, elevate him into a status that a lot of people already had him in. But I think in the eyes of everyone, he's going to be elevated, like you said, into one of the greatest players to ever play the game, because he's been one of the greatest players for a very long time. but the attention was never on him. And I think with the attention focused on him in this spotlight, it's going to do wonders for his career. Very similar dynamic, I want to say very quickly. Very similar dynamic to 2011 with Dirk Nowitzki, because everyone knew Dirk was great. Like everyone knew Dirk was great, but he never had that defining moment until 2011 where people really paid attention. We're like, oh my god, this is legitimately one of the best players who ever play the game of basketball. He's not just great; he's like Hall of Fame level, all time great. So I think this is it kind of reminds me of that dynamic a little bit.
Absolutely, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, you just a lot of people point to his playoff, the playoff failures and everything like that, but they forget he's been playing the game for so long. When he came in, dude, he had to carry a franchise. He did the best he could with carrying that Hornets franchise at the time, and then obviously, things did not go as planned both in Houston and in LA. But look at what he did last season, dude. That Thunder team is picking the lottery this year, and all they did was get rid of him. They eventually sold Steven Adams later on, but it was think about it, dude. The only offseason departure from that team was Chris Paul, and you saw they took Chris Paul off that team. They go from playoff team one shot away.
It's one of the worst teams.
The second round to one of the worst teams in the league.
Yep.
Yep.
So Chris Paul, arguably the most underrated player probably the past 10 years. So big ups to him. Congratulations to him. One thing that wasn't so great, though, for Chris Paul came up in the fourth quarter while up big against the Clippers. We saw that Chris Paul was shoved in the back by Patrick Beverly and shoved pretty hard. Paul could be seen walking past Beverly before Beverly ran after Paul, shoved him in the back, and then a bit of a scuffle ensued, but it was broken up fairly quickly. Beverly was ejected after the incident and apologized on Twitter. Andrew, was this a weak move by Patrick Beverly? Because you just think no matter what the situation is, he's pushing the guy in the fourth quarter of the Western Conference Finals. Like what is that?
You could point to it as weak, but you could also point to it as they broke them. You could point it as this was an elimination game. This supposed to be the deeper team. This was supposed to be It was almost like, even though they were down, a lot of people were saying, this is theirs to lose. Like, this is the Clippers to lose. They're going to win on their home floor. And I just think, having the performance, Chris Paul putting on that all-time performance in the Western Conference Finals game to clinch the series, I just think he broke them. Patrick Beverly is one of those players who's going to wear his emotions on his sleeve. And I just think that, him acting out, he's obviously a very emotional player. We've seen in years past, he gets in guys' faces. He's not scared to push people around and shove people. And you just saw that in the moment. They knew their season was over. And it was just a sign that not just Beverly, but the entire Clippers team, they were defeated, and it showed.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I truly get that. I do think they were broken, but I also think that's kind of why, that's more evidence of why this was a weak move by Patrick Beverly. Because Patrick Beverly, when you get broken, that's an indication that you were broken, which is an indication of weakness. So I do think it was a weak move, especially doing it. It's one thing to go after him, right? And then he turns around in your face and then you push him. That's one thing. But to do it when the guy has his back turned, to do it when he's not even looking, that in any scenario, dude, that's a weak ass move. It's like the equivalent of a sucker punch, from behind, just doing it from behind. It was obviously not that level. I'm not saying it was, but it's very similar as far as just how scummy it is. Because it was, I think, a scummy move. I think that Patrick Beverly, you can point to things like the fact that they were down, they were the better team, but Patrick Beverly, he's got a bit of a history with this, man. The dude, I get wearing your emotions on your sleeve. I 100% get that. But to do something like this to Chris Paul in this manner, right? It was one of the more respected players in the league, by the way, in Chris Paul. A lot of players get a lot of flack, but Chris Paul is actually kind of respected around the league. But for him to do that, along with what he did in the previous game when he mocked Chris Paul after he actually took a legitimate fall, which, it wasn't a flop, it was a legitimate fall on the court, and then he mocked him after that. I think it's like indicative of Patrick Beverly. I think he was the one trying to play a lot of these head games. But at the end of the day, Chris Paul just showed up to play, and that ended up getting in his head more so than anything. And I think part of the frustration might have been that he wasn't able to get into Chris Paul's head. Like that might have been also playing because he just got 41 points scored on him, and you look at that. Patrick Beverly's allegedly one of the best defenders in the league, but then you look at his performance against like great players like him, like Chris Paul, like Steph Curry, like he doesn't do too well against those kind of guys. So I think that also brings that into question. But I mean, look, the other thing that I think has kind of come out of this is the question of, is Patrick Beverly a dirty player? And I'm not going to say that he's necessarily dirty, right? He's done a lot of dirty moves, you know? Just like I don't think Draymond Green is dirty. I think he's done a lot of dirty moves. But, you know, people point to things like, you know, earlier in the series when he mocked Chris Paul, like I said. People also point to things like back in 2013 when he injured Russell Westbrook, you know, as him being a dirty player. So what do you have to say about that? You think Patrick Beverly's a dirty player?
I don't think he's a dirty player, dude. I just think the way he plays, his if a lot of people know his journey, dude. He wasn't drafted. He left school early, went to Arkansas. He's had to fight and claw for his entire career, dude. Like he's always had to, he's always had to do dirty work and something like that. So sometimes, when you're doing the dirty work and something like that, stuff's gonna happen. So it's just a reflection of the way that he plays the game. He's not necessarily, I don't think he's a dirty player. I just think that he's one of those dudes that he plays hard and, sometimes, things happen. Put it this way, dude. If when you see guys going to the basket, you don't see Beverly, like committing a flagrant foul. You don't see him doing stuff like that. Like you don't see him like flagrant fouling people at the basket when it's like, I get it. He dives on a loose ball and sometimes, you look at, he does things that some stars wouldn't do. And so you look at that and you're like, oh, sometimes what happens might be a dirty play, but he's not blatantly going out there being like, I'm going to dive at your knee to try to tear your ACL. He's not doing stuff
there's
like
a
that.
difference. But there's a difference, I think. And again, like there's a difference between hustle, right? Like you can have hustle. Like I'm not saying Patrick Beverly doesn't have hustle. He does hustle for the ball, for the loose balls. He does the extra work, which is why I think he was regarded for a while as a very good defender. But when you look at his lack of discipline, as Cameron just mentioned in the chat, you look at his lack of discipline in these situations, and overall, like I think it is indicative of him having, being more impulsive than a lot of other players. Like you remember back when he did that weird thing, he got into a Twitter beef with Steph Curry, and Curry just annihilated him with one tweet. Like Patrick Beverly was talking all this shit, like, "Oh, it's my time now. Like it's my time. I'm the greatest. I'm the best point guard in the NBA." And then Steph Curry said, "It's your time. You're 30. You're a 31-year-old man. Like step off." Like it's stuff like that. And then not being able to really prove it, like when that moment comes, I think that's what separated him for a lot of his career. And look, we saw in these playoffs, dude. He's not the same Patrick Beverly as he used to be. He's not. Like, and we need to be clear about that. So, again, is he a dirty player? No. I think he has done dirty actions, especially like there's no justification. Like we can talk about circles around it all we want. There's no justification where he did the Chris Paul. Like, who knows what could happen, man? Like he could have like hurt himself. Who knows? You pushed him. He pushed him pretty hard. Like you got to admit. Like, but there's no real justification for it. He apologized. I hope he's good. I hope Chris Paul is good. But you can't do that. You just simply can't do that. Do it to his face. That's all I'm saying. If you're gonna do it to his face.
Yeah, I don't know. Because sometimes, a lot of times people will blow things out of proportion. And they like to label guys. Like you were saying, dude, Draymond has been labeled a dirty player because of a few dirty plays here and there. But he's not, like I said, dude, he's not diving at nobody's knee trying to tear nobody's ACL. Remember, who was it? I mean,
Kelly Olynyk. To this day, I will say Kelly Olynyk is a dirty player because he literally took in 2014. He literally took Kevin Love's arm in Game 4 when the Celtics were about to get swept, and he took it out of its socket. And then Kevin Love was gone for the rest of the postseason, and then the Cavs ended up losing to the Warriors. So Like I point at things like that. Like it's not at that level of
Well,
dirty. It's not like Rasheed Wallace. Like love Rasheed Wallace, by the way.
and
Love Rasheed
and
Wallace, but he was
it's
a dirty player too. But
it's not like, yeah, dude, it's not like Lambeer. It's not like, the bad boy Piston or something like that. Who was it, dude? There were dudes that wanted Solomon Hill kicked out of the league
yeah,
because of the way he fell, because of the way he fell on LeBron. Like sometimes things
yeah,
happen. When you're
yeah.
playing hard and guys like that who have to play hard to even get on the court, things happen.
I agree. I agree. See, we see even in disagreement, we can agree on things. But congratulations to the Suns. We can't wait to cover the NBA Finals whenever that is. We'll get you information on that. But Andrew, let's move on and talk about something that is near and dear to my heart, not only and yours too, the NL East. So my Nationals are crawling their way back into first place, and we will do it. The reigning, defending world champion, Washington Nationals. You're damn right, I said it. The 2020 season did not happen. It was a Mickey Mouse season. Fake news. The Washington Nationals are crawling their way back in the first place of the NL East. One person who has been hot and literally swung life back into the Washington Nationals is one Kyle Schwarber. In the 10-game span, the god of the bat, Schwarber, hit 12 home runs, which, for those who are counting, is a modern MLB record. Schwarber is also he's also brought the Nats on a run where they've spent most of the season, honestly, at the bottom of the division. Even though it was a very close division, they were at the bottom of the division for most of the season. Schwarber literally swung them back into second place now, which is where they are, and they're in it. They're in it against the Mets for the NL East, and I think they're going to be for a while, considering how good they're playing. But I'm going to ask you, and then I'll go into my whole spiel. Has Kyle Schwarber, with his current run, made a case for the MVP?
I'd say a batting title. I wouldn't go as far as MVP. Season's still young. We haven't even hit the All-Star break yet. So he'll definitely be, I think he'll be, he should be in the running for All-Star. I don't know if he's in the home run derby. I'd like to see him in the home run derby, see him against Ohtani and Pete Alonso and the boys. But he's having a great season and everything like that. Dude, he's always been a power hitter. Yes, he's been inconsistent the last couple of seasons, but, he's shown flashes, dude. Like I was talking to you about the other day, dude. I watched this dude. He was hitting balls off the fucking buildings across the street in the 2015 NLDS against the Cardinals, dude. Like he was hitting tape measure shots. So he's always been able to do this. He just hasn't been able to do it consistently and put it together. So he's finally being able to put it together, which is good. And it's helping the Nationals. Do I think you guys are going to catch us? No, because once our whole team is off the DL, I don't know how my team is still in first place. We lost 20-2 last night, and we're somehow still in first place, which makes no sense.
Oh, because you guys went on a run when your team wasn't injured. But I'm telling you, we're gonna catch up. We're gonna catch up. We're going to catch up. The way this team is playing, with the way Schwarber's playing, and the way that God of pitching, Max Scherzer, has been playing this year, we're going to catch up eventually. It's a matter of time. Juan Soto is going to come along. The Washington Nationals right now are, I think, the hottest team in baseball, arguably, actually inarguably, fuck you guys. The Nats are going to win the NL East. We are going to win the National League title and then the pennant, and then we're going to go and we're going to win the World Series just like we did in 2019. Ryan Zimmerman is going to walk off as the greatest Nationals player of all time with 2 World Series under his belt, and Schwarber is going to leave and probably sign for the Dodgers. But again, regardless, in 2 years, we're going to be back right where we are right now because that seems to be a cycle that the Nationals are doing. But going back to Schwarber, in all seriousness, I will say this. Schwarber is having, honestly, his best season. And that's saying something. This is a dude who was hitting, 33 seasons, like you said, or 33 home runs a season a while back. And, he's been inconsistent somewhat since his days with the Cardinals. But, right now, or the Cubs, rather, sorry. But if you look at where he is right now, he's batting 249. He's hit 25 home runs this year. I think he has 50 RBIs. This dude, and this is through 70 games. We still have a ways to go. He's on pace to shatter all of his career highs. So this is someone who I think is on the come up. And is he going to be a consistent star for years to come? Who knows? I doubt it. He's probably going to sign a big contract next year when he leaves the Nats. But I think he definitely belongs in the discussion, especially if he keeps playing like this. If he keeps playing like this, he actually might run away with it. But you can't ignore, man. You can't ignore like what he's been doing for this team right now. Like I said, 12 homers in 10 games. He's hit 15 and 17. The dude on is the hottest player in baseball right now, and he doesn't look like he's slowing down any second.
As much as everything you just said about Schwarber is right for the most part. The MVP stuff, that's cute, but no. Listen, the MVP is pitching for the New York Mets. He's gonna win the MVP, the Cy Young, the batting title, the fucking Gold
The
Glove. He's
batting
gonna run away.
title?
The man's gonna run away with everything, dude. Yes, dude. Man has more RBIs than runs allowed in the season, dude. He's gonna run away with that. He's hitting like 4 something on the season, dude. The man's gonna run away with every award.
Yeah, I mean, no, DeGrom is great. I'm like, look, and I hate that he's great, right? But I have to admit it. DeGrom might be the best pitcher in baseball right now. Actually, might be.
That
He
might
is.
be.
He
No,
is
he
the best
is.
pitcher
He
in
is.
baseball right
He
now.
is.
But
Numbers back it up. The eye test just further.
Right, and
proves it,
and much like Max Scherzer, he doesn't have to rely on the stick like other pitchers we know who now play for the New York Yankees. But so I do think that, and I think it's going to be a battle, dude. Like that's one thing I think you and I both agree on, because the Nats are a team that when they get hot, like it's weird. It's weird. We will play like shit for the first like 3 months of the year, and then in the last few months, we'll just like go on a run like no one's ever seen. Like it's crazy. Like we went from losing we went from losing 8 of 10, and then to winning like 10 straight, to winning 9 out of 10. We're hot, but. I think you answered the question already. Can the Nats catch up to the Mets? I think they can. I genuinely, all seriousness, think they can, and they will. A lot of that does have to do with the Mets' injuries and the DL players on the DL. I don't know how long it's going to take for the Mets to kind of get back into a groove. Man, I don't know, man. DeGrom can only get you so far. As good as he is, as great as he can only get you so far. You got to have someone else giving him help.
We lost 20-2 yesterday. That's the low point of the season. So it's only up. Dude, we hit the low point of the season, and we're still in first place. It's only up from here.
That's because, okay, to be fair, we were like 10 games back and playing like shit for the longest time. All right, give it 2 weeks. Give it 2 weeks. We'll readdress this and we'll see where we are. And if I'm wrong, I will eat my currently non-present hat. But yeah, last thing I wanted to ask you about, because we didn't get to talk about this as far as baseball goes. Yeah, what did you think about that weak move by Girardi, by like calling to check Scherzer like twice in the same inning? What did you think about that?
That's just how Girardi is, dude. Actually, I listen to talk radio sometimes up here. I'm in Boston right now, but I listen to talk radio like in Jersey, like the tri-state area, dude. And there's people that are sitting up there, like they're all pissed off at Aaron Boone because they think Aaron Boone's a softie. And that's just how Girardi is. Girardi is going to call people out. Girardi is going to, he's going to speak his mind and how he feels or something like that. So if Girardi really thought, which I mean, I guess him being affiliated with the Yankees, who apparently, as we have learned, had a lot of dudes who were using the sticky stuff.
The stick. Yep.
Apparently a lot of his dudes were using the sticky stuff. So he probably assumes, well,
everybody
my guys
has
are using it. They're all using it. Yeah. So he's sitting here and he was like, check him. And I like the way Scherzer handled it, because Scherzer was just like, hey, do I gotta, he started. That man was ready to drop his fucking pants.
Yeah.
I like the way Scherzer handled it. People were like, oh, he made a mockery of it. They're making a mockery of Manfred and all this shit. I'm just like, good. Because you sat there.
If there's anyone in sports right now who deserves to be made a mockery of, it's Rob Manfred. #, fire Rob Manfred. Continue.
Because you let this shit, first off, they let this shit go on far longer than it was supposed to. And they were, dude, who was it? Someone, they were Jessica Mendoza, dude. She was interviewing a pitcher from the Angels the other day who actually said, because they banned the sticky stuff and he's not used to pitching without the sticky stuff, I think it's Richards on the Angels, he had to, in the span of 2 days, learn how to throw a pitch he's never thrown in his life because he's not used to pitching with sticky stuff.
Dude, it just goes to show you how weak. Dude, it's so weak. That's such a weak move. Oh, I can't cheat, so I need help learning how to pitch. You're a pitcher. You're a major league pitcher. You should know how to pitch already. Like, if you're not, then what are the Angels doing? What are you doing here? And if it's honestly, look, the way you just brought that up, if it's honestly that easy, if all I need to be a major league pitcher is the sticky stuff, is the stick, maybe you and I should try out for some baseball teams, man. Maybe
I should have never quit. I should have just kept with it.
Exactly. Maybe we should be on some major league teams because no, ain't no way. That's just a weak excuse for someone who can't who's reliant too much on cheating. But to kind of finish up on the Girardi point, man, dude, the Phillies fans will go to no ends, to all ends rather, to defend Girardi and his weakness. Like, I'm glad Girardi got, you know what, and you know what makes it worse, or you know what makes it funny? All Max Scherzer did after he struck out the rest of the players in the inning, he just stared at Girardi. He just stared him down the entire time. And then Girardi got hot, like Scherzer did something wrong. He's just looking at you, dude. He's just looking at you. And he got ejected.
I don't blame him for it. Yeah. And I don't blame him for it. I don't blame Scherzer. I don't blame Scherzer's response and his reaction to it, because in all honesty, that was basically, that was Scherzer's way of being like, oh, what? So because I'm just better than every dude you could put on the field against me, you assume I'm cheating? It's like they did the same shit with DeGrom. They did the same shit with Ohtani the other day. Ohtani laughed about it. DeGrom laughed about it, but it was just like, so what do you do? It's just like, maybe some guys in the pros are just better than the other guys that the other team is putting on the field, and you just kind of got to deal with that.
Unless you're Clayton Kershaw, then you're allowed to cheat. And then never show up in a World Series, and then just not show up. But that's a story for another day. We'll probably be talking about this, the sticky stuff, and a lot more in the future on Real Take Sports Talk. To stay updated on that, make sure you subscribe for daily videos. We got Real Take Sports Talk always on Thursdays, Real Take Wrestle Talk on Tuesdays. Lots of other stuff, game streams and whatnot in between. But Andrew, let's move on right now and talk about something that you and I think, are on different ends of the spectrum on, and that is college athletes and being paid. So this week, the NCAA announced, after a Supreme Court ruling that basically ruled that the system in the NCAA of not paying college athletes and then compensating off them is a drastic form of exploitation. The Supreme Court ruled that. Subsequently, the NCAA has officially announced that they are going to allow players to make money and be compensated from their likeness, from their name, and allow players to do things like signings, meet and greets, and whatnot. So this is a big deal. It is, I think, the first step into what I think is going to ultimately happen in paying college athletes. But it's an important step, and I just want to get your reaction very quickly, not just to the ruling, but what the NCAA did in response in just allowing players next year to compensate from their likeness.
I've had mixed feelings about this. I'm actually in the hotel room with a person who is a college athlete, and he wants to get paid. They all want to get paid, but my biggest thing is not so much with the kids getting paid. My biggest thing is just I'm thinking about the guys in the future, or not in the past, that have been screwed over by it. Like, we talked about this before, dude. It would be cool if a lot of these guys start getting paid. Yeah, like, pay them, but give Reggie Bush his Heisman back then. Terrell Pryor, you know, Ohio State. Remember, they were the sanctions. They had sanctions. What's his fucking Tressel? Tressel lost his job because of the Terrell Pryor shit. I'm like, give Derrick Rose and his college, give those guys their collegiate, Marcus Camby back in the 90s with UMass, dude. Give those guys their college career back. Anyone that broke records, give those guys their seasons back, because by punishing them, what you also did was you punished them and you punished their teammates, guys who necessarily, they didn't get a chance to play professionally. Like, even though Reggie Bush, yeah, he probably could have made a couple $1 million at 20 years old. Probably at the time back then would have been probably the highest paid collegiate athlete, 20-year-old in the country, because he probably would have been in movies. He obviously would have had endorsements and stuff like that. You think about the money he made in the NFL, think about his teammates who they had to suffer, and maybe they had wins taken away from them in their career because the NCAA was trying to punish him.
Okay,
And you saw
Andrew, since you brought it up, I had that scheduled for later. Let's just go right into it. All right, Reggie Bush, because of this ruling from the NCAA, has contacted and the NCAA, the Heisman Trust, everybody about getting his Heisman Trophy back. If you guys don't remember, Reggie Bush had his Heisman Trophy confiscated because there was an investigation that found that he had made money from his own likeness while being at the University of California, Southern California, the year he won the Heisman. So I don't think it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. He should get his trophy back. And what should happen to other athletes who have been in that situation?
same deal, dude. Same deal. The Terrell Pryor. I think guys like Terrell Pryor, dude. Terrell Pryor, he shouldn't have his name taken away from any of the record books at Ohio State. Tressel shouldn't have had seasons vacated and stuff like that. Obviously, you can't give him his job back. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't do that. But, just the tarnish that a lot of these guys' collegiate legacies was left with because of the aftermath of this stuff that happened because these guys took money under the table and stuff like that. There's obviously people who are going to sit there and say, they ended up making it anyway. Terrell Pryor played how many years in the NFL? So it's like, he obviously ended up going to the NFL and making money anyway. But it's just like, the tarnish of his legacy when it comes to college is, that's what I don't agree with. So give them, clear their names and everything like that. But the biggest one, dude, like you just talked about, the biggest one is Reggie Bush, dude. Yeah. The biggest one is, he should be in the Heisman house. He should be up there on the stage presenting the Heisman Trophy with every other member of that Heisman fraternity, Mariota, Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, all those other guys. He should be a part of that because, in all honesty, dude, we think back to who was, probably the most exciting player of that era after the year 2000, between the year 2000 and this past season, dude. He probably was the most exciting player that we've seen in the last 20 years play college football, and he was playing at the height of USC's dynasty, dude. Like, USC was cool, dude. Like, they were one of the coolest teams to watch. So,
yeah, fully agree, dude. Like, for me, it's he better get his Heisman Trophy back, and not just that. You brought an interesting point. What's going to happen to all the other people who've been affected by similar things? There's other players like Johnny Manziel was affected by Terrell Pryor. You mentioned Jim Tressel. Like, is there even an effective way to compensate or make up for that? When you think about it, there really isn't. A lot of this damage to players like Terrell Pryor, who probably would have been a first-round pick or right up there had he had that extra year to develop. The damage has been done. Granted, Terrell Pryor was able to salvage a bit of his career as a wide receiver, as a bit of a quarterback, and now he's out of the league. But it could have been a completely different story had these bullshit rules not been in place. And that's what I think is the crux of this. Because
Enes Kanter. Oh, yeah,
go ahead.
Continue. Enes Kanter. And not many people knows about Enes Kanter, dude. Enes Kanter went to the University of Kentucky 1 year, didn't play a single game, was ruled ineligible before the season started because he was playing professionally when he was over in Turkey or whatever. I think he's from Turkey and everything like that. Yeah. He received money professionally when he was playing in Turkey. So as a result, he was on the Brandon Knight team that actually went to the Final Four. You think about stuff like that. Had that stuff not been in existence, he could have had a collegiate career. He could have had that year to develop, play in a college system and everything like that. He's still playing in the NBA and everything. But, you think about how much could, his presence have altered that season? How much could having an NBA caliber player who ended up leaving for the NBA anyway, despite not playing a single game? He was drafted like sixth or fourth overall or something like that in that draft. He was still drafted high, but the point was, you look at it a team like Kentucky, that team, this was the year before they had Anthony Davis, by the way, that team probably could have won the whole thing. And you had a guy like him who basically, he wanted to go to college. He wanted to play collegiate ball. Obviously, if he didn't want to play collegiate ball, he would have never showed up to Kentucky at all. He went to Kentucky, and just to be told you can't play, it's like, guys like that have been affected in something like that. Seasons have been altered or something like that. And if these rules was never existed, dude, obviously the outcomes would have been different, but we would have had, we probably would have gotten to see a better product too, dude. We probably would have gotten to see a better product of college basketball too.
Yes. And everything you just said, Whether it was the case of Terrell Pryor, whether it was the case of Reggie Bush or Enes Kanter, everything you just said is, I think, proves even more so how important this is in getting rid of these outdated and honestly systems that probably shouldn't have been in place for a very long time, dude. College football, like, okay, forget college football, college athletics right now is the one of the most lucrative industries in the entire country. You look at especially college football, it produces billions upon billions of dollars a year. March Madness also produces hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue a year for colleges, and these athletes they get jerseys of like their numbers sold. They get like bobbleheads and stuff like that sold. It's ludicrous. It has been ludicrous for as long as it's been this lucrative. For as long as billions of dollars have been pumped in and out of these colleges, it's been ludicrous that these players have not been compensated in any way. It's been ludicrous that they've not even been allowed. Like Johnny Manziel got in trouble for signing a jersey. He got in trouble for signing a jersey for a few $100. Like, that shouldn't happen. The least you can do, which is exactly what the NCAA has done. The least you can do is allow, some local college player to get paid for signing a jersey because someone wants to pay him like $50 for a jersey. That's the very least you can do. Because remember the time commitment. Like, we want to talk about the scholarship and everything, and that's fine. But the time commitment and the money produced by these players, by their play on the field, and especially the amount of money that's being paid to some of these coaches. Yet it's been like this for a while. It's been exploitative for too long. College athletes, this is the first step. Like I said, college athletes should get paid, and eventually they will. They will. This is open. Whether some people like Tim Tebow like it or not, it's going to happen. And is there a perfect way to do it? I think there's always going to be a way to do it where people are going to be complaining about, these players shouldn't get paid this much. People are always going to complain. I think the best way to do it, when they're going to do it, is maybe have a base salary for some of these athletes, right? Depending on the divisions they play and the revenue those divisions bring in, and then have it broke down by like a contract, like an NFL contract or any like sports or athletic contract, right? You get paid royalties based off the jersey sales you get, right? Have that. If like Justin Fields, or he's not in the league. If Rattler, like, he sells like 1,000 jerseys, whatever, in a certain time period, he should get compensated for that, like a percentage based on whatever they want to decide, whatever the NCAA and the players come to decide. That's also another thing I think should happen if we get to that point. NCAA players should unionize, because at that point you're getting paid. At that point, you're probably going to the NCAA is going to try to exploit you in any way they want to, any way they can. So I think it's more important. We're seeing the landscape change, and a lot of those bad decisions, Andrew, that we just talked about, like Terrell Pryor, like Enes Kanter, the NCAA for decades have been ruling on. A lot of those decisions, I think, are going to be, at least in principle, vindicated by this ruling and by the future landscape of college athletics.
And you know what? When you think about it, dude, it's kind of late, and I know a lot of people are going to be opposed to it, but it's got to kind of it's got to start somewhere. I mean, I've seen some people argue, and they've been like, all you're going to see is you might see some young kids get taken advantage of by some companies or everything like that. But you know what? You also have to look at it from this perspective. They're adults. Like, you also have to think about it from this perspective. They're adults, and if you're old enough, once you're 18, dude, if you're old enough to sign your life away, that was a decision that individual made. And as much as they say, like, oh, we're trying to protect the players, like, you know what? If he decides he wants to sign with a company, or he wants to sign an endorsement or something like that, and it ends up backfiring on him, that's life. Like, if a player decides he wants to sign his life away for a few bucks, that's on him. Just because I wouldn't do it, just because you wouldn't do it, doesn't mean that, you can't coddle them. They're adults, and you kind of gotta, let that stuff happen.
And one thing you just pointed out, I always hated that idea of the NCAA saying, "Oh, we're protecting these players. Oh, we're protecting them from themselves, or we're protecting them." If they were protecting them, dude, they would have allowed college players to at least have free meals on campus before
Yeah,
2013. Like 2013? Are you kidding me? Before when who was it? Who was it?
Shabazz Napier.
Shabazz
Shabazz
Napier.
Napier.
Shabazz Napier was the guy. He said he literally came out and said, "Dude, there are days where I go hungry because I can't eat, because I can't
Yes.
work, because I'm at practice all day. I'm dead tired. I can't do anything. I have to be ready for class the next day." Like,
Study hall, mandatory study hall, and all this stuff. He goes, I don't. He goes, there are nights where I literally go to sleep hungry because I either a don't have time to eat, or when I do have time to eat, I can't afford it.
yeah. So it's like the least they could have done at that point was feed these athletes. So I don't want to hear anything from the NCAA. Oh, we're protecting the players, because they're not. And also, Andrew, you and I don't have to, like, we don't have to kid ourselves. The NCAA doesn't regulate this the same for a lot of these schools. If Alabama, mind you, was having like boosters or whatever, pay people, if any of that stuff was going, which is, look, nothing been proven, but it happens everywhere. It happens everywhere.
Charles Barkley hasn't been in college. Charles Barkley hasn't been in college in over 30
oh
years,
yeah,
and Charles
bring him back to
Barkley even
Auburn.
admitted. Charles Barkley even admitted, he goes, dude, I got paid when I was in college, and that was 30 years ago. He goes, you think these kids? He goes, a lot of these kids are getting paid. He goes, they just keep their mouth hush hush.
Yeah, and hey, more power to them. I'm glad they don't have to be hush hush about it anymore. That's a big development. Anything else on this, Andrew?
Not really, no. I just, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about it, but at the end of the day, they're adults too, and you also have to think about it from that perspective, dude. The NCAA can't be daddy, and the NCAA can't sit there and they can't use the excuse, we're trying to protect our players. It's like, you're not trying to protect nobody. You're trying to profit off these kids who are doing all the work, and you're just sitting there and cashing in on it. And at the end of the day, let the kids, I understand, letting the kids make the money. Yeah, if you have a kid who's a running back at, East Carolina or something, like that's a horrible example because that kid could be the next Chris Johnson. But if you have a running back at Southwestern State or something like that, and that kid, maybe he's not going to make the NFL, but he has some people tell him, we believe in you, and that kid signs his life away. That was also an adult who made an adult decision, and that person chose to do whatever he wanted to. So you can't sit there and act like you're trying to protect the kids while at the end of the day not doing anything for them. If you're going to try to protect them, do more for them than just sit back and collect.
100% agree with that. 100% agree. One thing that you and I also agree with is that Tom Brady is not the greatest of all GOATs. I think it's probably going to be a very quick segment, but Tom Brady was on the shop, and during that interview, during that talk, he was asked about this. There was this discussion about this dynamic between basketball players and football players, and can a football player be the greatest athlete of all time, or the greatest player of all time, as far as all athletes go? Tom Brady even agreed and said, no, because I don't play defense. I don't even play one side of the ball. LeBron agreed. Everyone else seemed to agree, right? And I think that that's a pretty fair point. Like, I legitimately think that no football player can be the greatest athlete of all time as far as impact they have on their team, because everyone only plays like one side of the ball or the other. You don't see mixing of that in basketball. It's much more. You have to, like, if you want to be a big superstar, a lot of times you want to be like a Kawhi Leonard, you have to be a two-way player, and you have to make that difference. But what do you think about that discussion, that whole comparison?
So I kind of see what you're saying with the whole football, like an offensive football player can't be the greatest athlete of all time. I kind of see where you're coming from, but then where do we establish criteria for that? Because then when you really think about it, dude, when you're establishing it as people who play both offense and defense as being the greatest athlete of all time, you're limiting these sports that these people play in to then determine who could be the greatest athlete of all time. Think about it. When you have sports, hockey, defenders really don't play offense. Baseball, you have guys that are two-way players, but a two-way player in baseball is someone who pitches and hits, not just pitches, plays the field, not just hits and plays the field. So when you establish that criteria, and I know who said it. It was LeBron, obviously, who said this. But when you think about that criteria, you're limiting it by saying that, okay, the greatest athlete of all time has to be a basketball player. That's the only thing that's why it's up for debate, because when you also think about who could be the greatest athlete of all time, you don't take into account individual sports. You don't take into account, stuff like tennis players, dude.
Well, I mean,
They they
I don't think that eliminates all other sports. I think soccer, you could be a good two-way player in soccer, and so here's the thing, and I just want to like refine, I guess, my point about it, because it does differ a little bit than LeBron's. I think that I think here's the thing. I think it does limit, right? Like I think the sports you play kind of does limit you as far as your overall, your overall standing as far as greatest of all time. Because Tom Brady, I think, is the greatest football player of all time. That's no doubt. Like everyone, Cliff Kellerman can keep talking. He's the greatest football player of all time. That being said, is he better than Jordan as far as an athlete? No. Is he better than even LeBron as far as an athlete? No. Is he better than Kobe? No. And I think and it's less so like his natural athleticism. I think as far as just that Tom Brady was hindered by the fact that he literally only played one side of the ball. And it's different even in hockey and other stuff like that. You have the ability to move around in hockey. In football, like Tom Brady's never out there on defense, like ever. He's not even out on the field when the defense is there. It's different in soccer when you have players kind of switching off and switching on. So, and in basketball, so I think it might just be more so of a football specific thing, where it kind of limits you in football. Because other sports, I think it opens it up more. Lacrosse is another one, but no. That being said, as much as I love lacrosse, no lacrosse player is ever going to be the greatest athlete ever. Continue.
But I can't see it like that either, dude. Because then what you're doing is you're limiting even in those sports, dude. You're limited by the position that you play, dude. Because think about it, you can look at a goalie and something like that and say, yes, that goalie is great, but that goalie is not going to go down. Goalies don't score. And that's in soccer. That's in lacrosse. That's in hockey and everything like that. So even then, you could be limited based on stuff like that. That's why I'm saying the whole basis of that argument, what it's doing is it's basically saying that, the best athlete ever has to be a basketball player, solely because, yes, they do play both sides of the ball, but also basketball players, you can have a center. You can have a center that, protects the rim. So plays like lockdown defense. And then the center can come down and score. Hakeem Olajuwon, dude, you could have a guy like Hakeem Olajuwon who's going to go block 5 shots, get 15 rebounds, and then go down and also give you 40 points or something like that. So that's my only issue is with the initial argument itself, by saying that, you're saying that a player who doesn't play both sides of the ball automatically is disqualified from the argument, because then according to that criteria, you're saying that when you think about every other sport, you're saying that, well, you're basically saying that a basketball player has to be the greatest athlete of all time based off of just how the game is.
That's I think that plays a part in it, though, don't you think? You look at football, dude. Like, as great as a lot of these players are, when you talk about the conversations about the GOATs of football, most of them are quarterbacks. Nearly all of them are quarterbacks. Tom Brady, John Elway, Johnny Unitas, Peyton Manning, all these guys, they're all quarterbacks. So I think in sports, it's just true. Some positions have more of an impact on the game than others. So I think that it's sometimes it is just kind of how it is, and I think in the same vein that a quarterback is always going to be at a higher pedestal in football, like some sports just require you to do more during the game. You know what I'm saying? They require you to do more during the game. And football, if we're being real, like it does limit players. As great as Tom Brady is, and as great as the impact offensively he has on his team, it doesn't translate as much on defense as it would if he was playing like a sport like basketball or whatever.
See that, but then again, I get what you're saying, dude. It's just I feel like every other sport does limit it, because then when you think about it, according to that criteria, unless you have a pitcher like a Babe Ruth, like a Shohei Ohtani, like a Jacob deGrom, those are the only ones that can legitimately. And even then, dude, once baseball, because baseball next season is getting rid of pitchers hitting as a whole, they're going to be disqualified from that argument technically too, because now they're limited to just either pitching or
you
just hitting.
You guys just lost your best hitter in deGrom.
But that's what I'm saying, dude. Because
I love the natural reaction you just like, oh shit.
but that's all I'm saying. That when we establish criteria like that, obviously the criteria plays a role. But do you think that though? Like, do you honestly feel like the greatest athlete ever has to be like? Because according to that criteria, the greatest athlete ever has to be a basketball player.
No.
And don't get me wrong,
I think you put Neymar in that conversation too. You could put soccer players in that conversation. It's just I mean, look, if we're being honest, soccer players
but they're limited by position.
So even in football, man, you're limited by position. I'm sorry, it's
right.
True. Sometimes that's just part of it.
But then, according to that logic, dude, basketball is the only sport where you're not limited by the position.
You can be limited by position.
Yes, you are.
You can be limited by position.
Goalies. Those goalies can use their hands. Other players can't.
So I mean, like you can point to like centers, dude. Like how many centers are there that are in the greatest conversation of all time, or power forwards that are in the greatest player conversation, even in basketball? They're great. They're great. You got Will, right? I mean, even then, they're not in the GOAT conversation though. They're not in the GOAT conversation. Name the players who are in the GOAT. Kareem is one. Okay, I'll give you one. Kareem, but other than that, it's Jordan, it's Kobe, it's LeBron, it's like a lot of them are just a lot of magic. They're either they're point guards, they're shooting guards. They're not necessarily like a lot of those players like. None of them played center. None of them play power forward. Like, as great as Tim Duncan is, he's not in the GOAT conversation. As great as Dirk Nowitzki is, he's not in the GOAT conversation. As great as, again, the list goes on and on. But you know what I'm saying? It's just, I think sports just kind of has lended itself for so long to, we just thought about sports like that for so long. And all of these sports. Like, these positions mean more. No matter how great some of these other players at these positions are, these positions have more of an impact on the game, and it translates easier. And we can see it more easy. You know what I'm saying? That's why like defensive players in the NFL even they don't get nearly as much respect as they should. Khalil Mack is a game-changing, franchise-changing player. He will never get the same credit as someone like Tom Brady or someone like, Pat Mahomes. Same you can say with Aaron Donald in the NFL. Same you can say with someone, like Patrick Beverly used to be in the NBA, But like, you know what I'm saying? It's just how things are. I think it's just how we think about the game.
I think a lot of it has to depend on the sport too, dude. Because when you think about it, dude, every sport we just named is a team sport with the exception of like maybe tennis. Tennis is the only one that's like, I think that's something that a lot of people have to take into consideration too, is that like, an individual sport, I feel like the best athlete ever has to be a person whose success is not predicated on anybody else but themselves. So I feel like that should also be something that people note, like the Serena Williamses of the world, the Roger Federers and Nadals, everything like that, because there was even golfers, for example, dude, as much as people want to say maybe it's not the same physical rigor, it's not the same, they don't have to, maybe take the same body blows other people take. At the end of the day, the only person that impacted their performance and whether they won or lost was them. Nobody. For example, dude, take LeBron in the finals. He lost game one of the 2018 finals because of J.R. Smith.
Yeah.
That wasn't his doing. He lost because of somebody else. So that's another thing that people have to take into account too when they think about this debate.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think we would go on about this for like hours, dude, because it is like it's an interesting conversation. It's like a very like because there's a lot of layers to it. But I think we can agree. We can agree though. I think that as good as Tom Brady is, he's probably not the GOAT of all GOATs. As good as he is. And he's great. Anyway, let's move on and talk about this news that just came in today, Andrew. Oh, nope. That's we're saving that for last. Can't wait to see the smile on your face when we talk about that. Let's talk about this, though. The news came in today that the Washington football team has been fined $10 million. The NFL has handed down this punishment to the Washington football team for a workplace misconduct investigation that implicated many senior management members of the team. The NFL, again, fined them $10 million. one crucial aspect of this whole punishment is that no one who was implicated in the report and subsequent investigation was personally suspended or expelled from the NFL for their conduct. We know what happened last year. There were a lot of misconduct allegations that came out in the team. Actually, last offseason was not a great PR season, like a few months for the Washington football team. Andrew, what do you think about this investigation and this punishment, rather? And did it go far enough? You're muted.
I I I I I'm not talking about the Washington football team. They made the playoffs. I don't want to. Dan Schneider. This is a Dan Schneider problem. This is not my problem. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm just gonna okay. Then I'll just take it from here. All right. So, workplace misconduct violations are the light way to put some of the stuff that went on. There were allegations and actually credible reports that the senior members of the Washington football team tried to basically pimp out cheerleaders. There were a lot of other violations. You guys can read that in the reports and the news. I think the Washington Post did a big story about this last offseason. But to put it simply, man, I think the $10 million fine, yeah, it's a historic fine. It's a huge fine. Like $10 million is not cheap. I don't care how, even if you're Dan Snyder, that's not cheap, right? But to be fair and to be honest, the fact that nobody who was involved and they know the names and they know the people, the fact that nobody who was involved was at least suspended, I don't think it really hinders this type of behavior from happening again, right? I don't think it hinders that kind of behavior from happening again because it's very similar to the Astros punishment, dude. They came down hard on like the franchise, right? But they didn't come down hard on the people who did it. And like nothing happened to Altuve, nothing happened to all the other players involved. Same thing here. The franchise was hit hard with a fine, but nothing happened to the people who were in the football operations department, who were managing this football team. Nothing happened to them specifically as far as like they can like in theory they can go and get hired for another team and go and work for other teams when they really shouldn't be able to do that because they created an unsafe working environment for employees of the team. They brought a terrible PR, not just to the Washington football team, but to the NFL by doing this. And on top of all that, like some of the things they were investigated and credited for were terrible things. So no, it doesn't go far enough. I think the NFL should have come down harder. Like you're telling me you came down harder on Bountygate than you did on this, where people were legitimately hurt, like people were legitimately put in unsafe working environments. Like the NFL field is different. Like you go out there, you're expecting to get hit. I'm not like excusing what happened in Bountygate, right? There were those like they were headhunting, and that's also part of a bygone era in sports, but that's a whole different thing. But the fact that they were putting the employees through this kind of stuff, the fact that there was allegations of like racism and all this other stuff, and actually overt racism, like that's what forced them to change the name. This is way too light. This is way too light because. Also, remember, Dan Snyder is probably also not going to feel this. Like this is going to be on the Washington football team, and how soon are they going to make up that $10 million? Probably pretty fast. They'll make that up probably with like Fitzpatrick jersey sales or something. Like you know what I'm like? It's sad. It's sad because they should have done more. They should have done more. The people who were involved in this, I don't think they should be working for an NFL team anytime soon.
No, hate to see it. You hate to see it. And
Fair.
we really thought this organization, dude, they, finally got back in the playoffs. We really thought they were turning the corner, man. And then, same old bullshit.
Yep. Same old BS. Andrew, speaking of same old BS, I think you'll appreciate this. Speaking of same old BS, let's talk about this. It's July 1st, and you know what that means. Andrew, happy Bobby Bonilla Day. Yes, Bobby Bonilla Day, the one day every year where no matter how great they're doing, no matter how wonderful the record of the New York Mets is, The entire sports world gets their guaranteed shot to laugh at the New York Mets today. Former Mets outfielder Bobby Bonilla will receive a check for $1.19 million today, or at this point, I really do hope it's direct deposit, given the fact that it's 2021. Andrew, I want you to just tell me, for those who don't know about Bobby Bonilla or Bobby Bonilla Day, enlighten us on this historic day in sports every year.
Yeah. All it is, dude, is it's a constant reminder to me that my fucking organization doesn't know how to fucking make moves. That, before fucking Uncle Steve bought the team, the fucking Will Ponds, all they knew how to do was fucking spend money recklessly and not do jack fucking shit besides put a losing team on the fucking.
I love the salt. The amount of salt behind this. Like, you've said fuck like you said fuck like I think 10 times in the past 5 seconds. That's so crazy. Continue.
Because I'm always reminded of this fucking shit, dude. This man.
Well, why don't you tell people what happened? Kind of. Let's work through it. Let's work through it a little bit.
Basically, long story short, we signed this man to a big-ass contract in 1999. He was not on the team in the year 2000. We had to buy his ass out because he didn't do jack fucking shit for us. And what ended up happening was the way the logistics worked out was that the team wasn't going to be bankrupt at the time or not bankrupt. Basically, we have to pay this man $1.2 million every year from 2001 to 2035. And he stopped playing baseball in 2002. We are in 2021. That means this man, for the last 19 years, the last time he stood in the batter's box, has been making $1.2 million a year, probably to sit on his ass and just collect. That's it. And my team is doing this.
And they will be doing this for at least the next 14 years.
Fuck, man. Will Ponds were scared to spend money, and then we were scared to spend money. Uncle Steve comes in. This is one thing I think. I'm done.
Oh, come on. Let it out.
No, I'm done. I'm getting heated.
Now he's getting heated. Oh man, see, this is the thing. Again, the Mets are doing amazing this year. But no matter what, the one way you can trigger Mets fans, I don't care whether they're on a World Series run or whatever, bring up the name Bobby Bonilla every July 1st, send them a text, let them know it's Bobby Bonilla Day, and you will get this wonderful reaction to my left. Happy Bobby Bonilla Day, Andrew. This was actually way better than I thought it was going to be, Andrew. You're actually so mad. Oh, okay, Andrew, I'll let you handle this. What are your final takes for today? You got anything on your mind? Anything in the world of sports you're interested in?
I really hope Giannis gets to the finals, dude. I really want Giannis to win the East just because he's paid his dues, man. Like, he's paid his dues. He's gotten knocked out. Milwaukee they've underachieved. Man's a 2-time MVP. And I really want to see Nick Wright and all these other idiots on fucking morning talk shows eat their fucking words talking about Giannis still can't shoot. I don't give a fuck. This 2-time MVP that can't shoot, if this 2-time MVP that can't shoot averages 30, wins finals MVP and a championship, then he don't need a jump shot. That's all I'm saying.
He can still shoot better than Ben Simmons. I think like that's although I could probably shoot better than Ben Simmons because.
And yes, on the Ben Simmons topic, once again, I said this at the beginning of the show to any of you who weren't here at the beginning. If you ever feel low, down on yourself, and you ever feel useless, just remember Ben Simmons wears a shooting sleeve.
Yep, remember that, and remember that the pitcher on the Angels said that he literally cannot pitch without the sticky. So there's hope for all of us as far as making millions of dollars playing whatever wonderful game of sports we want to play. Andrew, who you got tonight? Hawks, Bucks. Who you got tonight?
Milwaukee.
I got the Hawks, and I got the Hawks by a good amount tonight. I think they're gonna like inch closer to finishing this series out.
I just think despite not having Giannis, I think Milwaukee at home gives them the biggest thing is role players, which they're essentially playing now with. I'm not gonna say all role players, but role players play well at home, and I think that having home court, especially for this game, is going to bode well for them. That's why I'm taking them, just because of home court and the way that, statistically speaking, dude, the role players just play better at home than on the road. And I think guys are going to step up. I think Drew Holiday is going to step up. I think Bobby Portis is going to step up in Giannis's absence. I think Lopez and obviously, Middleton. This is Middleton's time to obviously break that stigma that has been about him where, he's good here, then he drops off here and everything like that. Well, tonight, this is Chris Middleton's team, and this is his chance to prove that he's really about it. He's legit. So
they got no shot without Giannis. I'm sorry. They got no shot without Giannis.
They do. Back in Milwaukee, I don't think so. No, back in Atlanta, I don't think so. Tonight, I think in Milwaukee, I think they do.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. And yeah, I think that
no Trae Young tonight either, by the way. Trae Young's not playing tonight either. So.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I understand that, but I do think it's gonna. I think Herter and like Bogdanovich are gonna probably. I think they're capable. They're more capable offensively than I think the Bucks are at this point. But we will see. We will see. Yeah, I think that's about it. Unless anyone in the chat has anything to say. Let's read through some of these right here, because Cameron did leave some amazing messages. So we'll read through these and we'll head out. Devin Booker may go down as the best scorer of all. Okay, we already read that. Okay, Chris Paul's defense is hardly talked about. His defense is magnificent. Big facts. Big facts. Patrick Beverly should get traded. He has not been the same defender like he used to be. He lacks the lateral quickness and discipline at this point in his career. Pretty true. That's like a great breakdown of Pat Beverly right now. Then finally, Cameron says, Grayson Allen is a dirty player. I'm pretty sure of that. Yeah.
Yes, Cameron, we agree with you. Grayson Allen is one of the dirtiest players to ever play. But you know what? That grit and grind in Memphis, I think he is the perfect player. I'm not going to say everyone that plays for Memphis is dirty, but I do think that Memphis is the perfect place for him.
Man.
But yes, Grayson Allen is a dirty player.
Whatever happened to Grayson Allen? Is he still in Memphis, right? Does he get any playing time? Does he get minutes? He gets minutes.
He's like the seventh man, dude. He gets real minutes.
Oh man,
He did sell them. He did sell them a couple times this season, but he did get minutes.
Hey man, hey, big ups to Grayson Allen, man. Big ups to him. You are a dirty player, Grayson. You 100% are a dirty player. But regardless, love to see your success. All right. I think that just about does it for us, guys. Thank you for tuning into the show. We're keeping it real goes right. Both of us are not at our home locations right now, so this was a bit of a weird vibe, bit of a weird episode, but I think we made it work. Don't you think, Andrew?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, because you don't have to produce and
we just need Johnny G. Honestly.
Yeah, that would take the pressure off.
Soul.
Yeah.
Johnny G is the heart and soul of this operation. We need him. Johnny, if you're listening, we need you. So come home.
Yeah, forget law school, man. Who needs law school when you have friends?
Come home, Johnny.
On some
home.
LeBron shit, please come home. Anyway, so this has been Real Take Sports Talk 45 episodes deep. It only took us about a year and 3 months, but man, are we here? We're here. We're still here. Andrew, a year and 2 or 3 months out, we're still here bullshitting about sports, and we have, or at least I have fans. I don't know about you, but you do have 2 fans.
I have haters.
No. No, one of them is hater, but you have one fan who actually agrees with everything you say. It's actually hilarious. I'll send you those screenshots but that's funny. No, but thank you guys for supporting us. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button down below. Hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. We're going to be clipping this throughout the week, so we got daily videos coming at you. Also, streams of future games and the NBA Finals coming as well. Real Take Wrestle Talk also coming to you every single Tuesday. Real Take Wrestle Talk, the highest rated show in Real Take Sports history, the only weekly episodic show in Real Take Sports history that is winning in amongst all demographics. So we got our work cut out on here, Andrew. But we'll take care of that. In the meantime, please, guys, remember to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Blog is coming very, very soon. The Real Take franchise is expanding. So check us out. Follow us on Twitter to stay updated on all of that at Real Take Sports. Follow Andrew on Twitter also at brackets in brackets Lil Penny in brackets. Make sure you guys get the brackets in on there.
It's absolute value because everybody always asks me, what the hell are the two L's on the end? It's supposed to be absolute value for any of you that took algebra ever in your life. That's what it's supposed to be.
We went to a burger place once where you had to you order on a machine and then they call your name out to go pick it up. So Andrew ordered his. We all ordered on our Twitter names, and mine was fairly fine. Mine was number Q. We had Simon, who was Trenzy, and then this clown over here. They come out. He puts his Twitter name in. They come out and they read it, and it's like Illy Penny. It was the funniest shit ever. It was just like
there's a reason she was working at Shake Shack.
Milkshake for me.
Milkshake for me.
All right. Well,
banned from that place.
Well, there's always next time. We can always go back now that COVID is clear. We can always go back to Shake Shack and DuPont Circle. Big shout out to them. Those were some amazing burgers. That's one thing we can say. Those were some amazing burgers. Yeah. So we will see you guys same time, same place next week on Real Take Sports Talk. Yeah. Bye.